Finally.
Orlox. Go to the ship, Richter. I'll catch you up.
You've made a big mistake. My mom was gonna slice you in two.
For children, especially when they look up to their parents are really good at things. Parents are almost like gods to children. Our imprinting in childhood on our parental figures helps start that base of stability, our feelings of security. And you can tell that Richter 100% believes in what he's saying about his mom. He really looks up to her. And those first times when we first realize that our parents are fallible, they're not perfect, can be really devastating for children, especially so in the case of Richter.
In 250 years. Do you know?
Love his voice.
Do you know how many vampire hunters have promised to slice me in two?
At least one.
Now, Richter, go to the ship. Come on, Mom.
For him, there's not even a possibility that she could fail. He just wants to watch the show. This is probably something that he's had very few chances, maybe none, to get to see. And so you can understand why he would really want to see his mom in action. You hear about all of these legends, but you don't really know what your parents are like when they're at work or doing their favorite hobby, especially if they're exceptionally good at that. And biologically, it was really important for us to watch and see, to be able to mimic what other people do, especially in times of trouble. That's when our brain is on record. That's when that trauma, that anxiety response are areas for mimicry, for learning of behavior, which are really heightened when we're younger, are learning and recording what to do in times of danger or in stress. So unfortunately for parents, if your reaction is not the reaction you want your child to have in stress, yelling or screaming or panicking, then you want to really be careful what you do in those times, because that's when it mattered. That's when we had to learn to keep us out of danger. The world was a really dangerous place. And so during those times, we had to remember really quickly, maybe only with one chance to see it before, so that we wouldn't get wiped out or make a mistake the first time that something happens to us. We are pretty much useless when we are first born. So when we hit those developmental levels at the age of 2, we have more synaptic connections than we will ever have for the rest of our life. And that's when we start to really develop, learn, and grow. And that's one of the biggest growth cycles for us, is from the age of 2 to about the age of 7 to 9 years old. That's when our brain is actually pruning synaptic connections, when we're honing in on what are the skills that we should keep and learn. And we do that mostly through mimicry, also through experiential, and the things that we feel emotionally. Also, we develop and imprint what to be able to do, think, and feel in various scenarios. It's actually losing of connections that allows us to hone in and speed up certain connections for certain areas of our growth. And so that's why it's really important for us as parents, as parental figures, to be able to really try to enrich our children's lives during these very important growth periods. A lot of times when we're young, all the way up to our teenage years, we feel infallible, and the people that we care about are also infallible. We feel almost invulnerable, like nothing can hurt us. To realize that that can happen, that horrible things could happen to us, can be really devastating, exceptionally traumatic on us, and change who we are as people, change the way that we see the world. Our entire scheme of what we trust, what we do, how we feel, can be altered because of traumatic events in early adulthood. I find this part so heartbreaking because for Richter, he just wanted to help out his mom in a fight. Like, he saw that she might not be as prepared as he had hoped for. He wants to be able to be a part of it, and he's trying to help out. Unfortunately, especially when we're fighting something and it's difficult for us, we need to have full concentration, especially when you've mastered a sport. When you've mastered something, you'll do better when you don't have to think, when you allow your instincts to just go about them. But now, her thought process, it's split. She has to make sure that she protects him, along with fighting a foe that is to or greater than her level. Like, I can just feel that guilt that he has to go through, that if he had gone to the ship or he had stayed hidden, would have the end result been different? And those are the kind of things that really play upon our mind. You can't go back in time. We do the best that we can. His intentions were not to harm. They were not ill. They were a child's thought. But it's a really hard thing to kind of let go of those feelings of survivor's guilt also. Often they can stay with us for many years or even a lifetime if we don't work through them. And because of his prefrontal cortex, he doesn't understand consequences to actions. And I don't even think that at this stage he even realizes that she could be fallible, that she could make a mistake, that this could end up in danger. He was just joyous and excited, and then he was worried, and his thought is to protect those that he loves because of not really having the foresight, which we don't have. It's the last part of our brain. Consequences to actions are the last part of our brain that develops. And so because of that, he makes this error, this calculated error out of love and protection, but one that probably plays upon him very heavily. And you can tell that for Julia, this is the first time that she shows real fear. She wasn't scared for herself, she wasn't scared for the battle, she wasn't scared for the end result, but that mother's instinct to protect her child and the risk to him, now she is frightened. And her knocking him out of the way is what caused her to lose her whip and get herself pinned. It's just so painful to have good intentions go awry, and then how do we deal with them?
I'm sorry, Rita.
Sorry of, I'm sorry that this didn't end this way. I'm sorry that you have to see this. I'm sorry that you're now in danger. I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you. I'm sorry that all of this happened. She probably feels bad that she even brought him to this area. It was just so hard, those moments of regret that she has in that look at him. What Richard's going through is shock. Your brain, it goes through, it's so much emotional or traumatic damage that it'll actually shut itself off, that you can't even think or feel. It blocks everything out, and it's a way to protect yourself from absorbing any more traumatic damage. For some people, they may even faint. And processing power is sped up in certain areas, but completely slowed down in others. Again, in order to keep us safe, because absorbing all kinds of trauma, it's really, really hard for us. And so sometimes our brain short circuits in order to give us, I don't want to say a break, but a pause, so that we can survive long-term, not really short-term, because being in complete shock is not always what you need. But everyone reacts to trauma in different ways. There is that fight, that flight, that freeze, that faint or fawn. And so in some cases, it is just that freeze response where nothing is happening. You can tell that nothing is going in.
Little boy Belmont. I know that feeling. Your mama took someone from me I loved, just as much as you loved her.
When we go through traumatic events, some things in that event sometimes get imprinted in our mind. It could be a sight, a smell, a feel, things that happened, words that were said. They become recorded. It's beneficial for us in order to remember that, to try to Solve that problem so that we don't get ourselves stuck in that situation again, which you can tell biologically that would be a great idea. But it also is traumatic that we can sometimes then continue to see flashbacks, to hear things, to think things, to have nightmares that bring us back this solution. For our brain, it's trying to solve the problem. But for us, we're reliving this trauma over and over again. And for some of them, they're not traumas that there is a solution for that we will ever experience again. But for our brain, it has one way of trying to solve problems. It has one way to kind of deal with it, to try to cope with it. The thing is that if you only relive the trauma over and over again, you can stay there and you can get stuck in that time and place. And so that's why it's really important to work through trauma, again, the way that you see fit. Therapeutically would be one way, but other people have different ways of going through trauma. It could be meditation, it could be exercise, it could be journaling. You want to find your own path to be able to have the thoughts of those events to not negatively impact you, because if you don't, they'll just come up at any point in time, and they can be really damaging to present day events and present day choices. In some cases, they can completely stop you in your tracks or doing things that you might want to or need to do, such as dating, becoming close to people, taking risks because you fear that bad things could happen.
I am Richter Belmont, last descendant of the Belmont clan, and I kill vampires! Who's next?
I love seeing how much he believes in himself, how much he's grown. Even though he no longer has his magic, he has honed his skills and become really good at them. A lot of times when we've gone through something, we've been bullied or traumatized or gone through hurt, we make sure that nothing ever is going to hurt us again in that way. For Richter, he has honed his skills of being able to fight and be exceptionally adept at that. Because that hurt and pain from when he was a little boy is still somewhere in there, hasn't yet been addressed. And for lots of us, we carry our hurts and pain with us for the rest of our life, unless, of course, you address it. But you'll still hear it, and you don't want to just shove it away. You want to be able to listen to it and hear what it needs and wants from you, not from other people.
Little boy Belmont, all grown up.
Perfect sense that this would cause him a full-blown panic attack. It's this very distinctive voice. It brings him back to being that little boy again, that fear, that terror. And he uses the same line that he heard exactly said in the same way. That's common for us and beneficial, right? If you heard the snake rattle, felt the same kind of air or the same environment, everything about a situation that caused us damage can restart that feeling of trauma in us, which would have been beneficial so that we get prepared for danger beforehand, because most dangers used to wipe us out. So it makes sense that we will go into full adrenaline response. Unfortunately, though, sometimes it's not the response we want. And for Richter, it is to flee. And here he is, this amazing, epic, legendary fighter who can fight things and feel no fear. But in these moments when we go through our panic or anxiety, we become children again. The part of our brain that's about a 3-year-old takes over and it chooses for us. Is this weakness though? I hate when people say that. No, it's not bloody weakness. This is our body naturally going through an adrenaline response. And yes, we can train ourselves to get better at dealing with adrenaline responses, but they are normal, they are natural, and they happen to everybody. No, it is not a weakness to have this happen. Should you deal with it? Yes, 100% you should deal with it because it is unpleasant and sometimes it's going to have you do things that you don't want to do. But this thought of this is strength or weakness, not having fear is not a strength. That's not being that smart to understand your dangers. You have to have an adrenaline response. If not, it's not normal or not healthy, but you don't want it to take over for you either. It's an understandable response, especially going through the kind of trauma that he had. He lost his mother and watched her die in front of him, and all of the feelings of survivor's guilt. What could have he done? Replaying it over and over in his mind. You can understand how this vampire that killed his mom is the greatest monster that he could ever encounter, because in the end, it's you defeating the monsters that are inside of you, not really the monsters that are outside. And he's created Orlox to be undefeatable.
We have to go. We have to get out of here. We have to go!
And so unlike Richter, he doesn't even wait for everyone else to leave. His body decides for him. When we replay times of panic, we rarely reacted the way that we hope or wish to. It shuts off our cognitive part of our brain, the thinking part of our brain, and we just do something. Again, it was smart for his own survival, but it is the antithesis of who he is. He is there to protect Maria and Annette, but in this case, he leaves everyone behind. He has to get out. To have that thing that we've tried so hard to run from, to have never come back to see us, to be face to face with it, especially when you didn't expect it, it's reliving that trauma from you and it being forced upon you, which actually makes anxiety and traumas worse. A lot of people try to help someone with the trauma by throwing a rubber snake at someone that's scared of snakes. That's only going to make the trauma worse. It's not going to be healing it. You might think that it's funny, but it'll actually increase their anxiety reaction to dealing with that. For Richter, it's also that reflection of who is he and what did he do. He couldn't save his mom, and he wasn't able to save Annette and Maria, and he doesn't even know if they're okay. And it's all in his mind because of him, because he couldn't hold it together. Our own self-reflection on who we are and why we've reacted the way that we have, it can greatly influence, one, our own feelings of self-esteem and self-worth, but also our actual reactions of how are we going to handle situations and why. I think that they did a really beautiful job of truly showing the pain that he feels and having it be this childlike, unreserved wailing that he feels. I think that that is a really honest reflection of what happens to people when they've had to face their traumas and haven't reacted the way that they wished that they could. I don't think that it was that he went back in time and he was a child again, but his child part self came out, and then the reflection that he has on himself and his growth. In the end, we're kind of like just big kids trying to go through the world doing the best that we can. And I don't think that he really believed that he could be beaten either, just like he believed in his mom. So I think that he's going through it twofold.
You said you were a powerful magician. Emphasis on the word.
I had a wife, your grandmother, and a friend. His name was Maxim. A vampire killed them both.
And for Richter, he wants to know because the magic left him also. He hasn't been able to produce magic since the day that his mother died. We can surmise different reasons, but often what happens during times of trauma, that anything that deals with that trauma we may not feel that safe or comfortable with. For him, his magic failed him. He wasn't able to save his mother with it, and possibly he might have even blamed it. Especially for the Belmonts, magic for them was in their belief system, in being able to fully believe in themselves, to have a singular focus. And I think that it left Just and it left Richter both in times of when they failed the people that they love and they lost someone. I think that it's very telling that both of them weren't able to perform magic during those moments after.
You going to beg for his life? The little girl, it is almost your sister. The speaker woman, who has been like a mother to you.
And what this vampire doesn't really know, that he's actually inciting Richter. I don't believe that he would have fought this hard, that he would have burned with this amount of fury, had it been just for him and his grandfather, because he doesn't really care about his grandfather that much, and he doesn't really care about losing his own life. Him inciting those that he loves, that he has sworn to protect, that he already feels like he has abandoned and put them at risk, I think that that's what really causes that fire, that fury inside of him.
She'll turn them. What do you think of that?
And I love that we can really feel that fury that he feels inside of him, those flashes of the people that he loves, that it is up to him to be able to do something, and that kind of burns out from him without even his control. people that deal with violent situations, difficult situations, that's what they talk about. This is when their adrenaline works for them, where nothing else matters. They become singular in their focus. Time almost slows down, where they just do what they have to do. And for Richter, it comes out with this item crash kind of like full on fury, but it's just really cool to be able to feel this played out, that in this case, he was able to fully believe in himself and to be able to do something about it. I don't think that it is even though he had this trauma, I think that it is because he's had this trauma. He knows what it's like to lose someone. He's replayed it in his head 1,000 times, and he is going to do everything he can. Every single cell of his being is going to ensure that this doesn't happen again. And that's what unleashes the power of his magic again, that he knows he has to. And so everything inside of him is going to rage out. When we deal with a very difficult situation and we have that rush of adrenaline, that's when, if we've mastered something, if it is something within us, we'll actually be better without thought. And that's when that adrenaline can be exceptionally effective, where we want to have it, to be able to utilize it to its full power, where people can lift up cars, where we become stronger, faster, single-minded, focused on one thing to be able to get the job done. Love the music. And I love those scenes. Those are my favorite scenes, when someone really believes in themselves and it doesn't even matter. Like, they're running at him and he's just standing there. He's not scared at all. And like, he doesn't need the whip. The cool part is that just talked about how he didn't need the whip. He was so powerful with his magic. He was one of the most powerful sorcerers of the Belmont clan. And he didn't even need his whip to be able to lay waste to vampires. And here it is, Richter being able to fully embody that. And it's just a really cool moment to be able to have just look on, to be able to see it play out right before him.
There's something you forgot about Belmont. I'd forgotten it too. I was going to say something witty and cutting and brutal before I finished you off. But f*** it.
How did that happen?
A bunch of vampires tracked me, hunted me down. I remembered the things that make me who I am. The hopes, the pain, and the shit.
And that's what happens to us, is that when we need those moments to really hold on to it, we go back to those places. We relive the things of who are we, what have we done, what have we accomplished, and that allows us to move forward or get stuck in place. That's why it's so important to remember your accomplishments. Remember who it is that you are, the character traits that make you what it is. And that's why if you're really negative and hard on yourself, you're actually defeating yourself before you've ever entered the fight.
I really made a choice about the kind of person I want to be. A Belmont. I won't let myself be afraid ever again.
But we are afraid. It's not always bad.
Fear is not a bad thing. That shouldn't be the point. The point shouldn't be to not be afraid. The point should be to be afraid, but still be able to move forward, to go on, in spite of your fear.
I'm ready for you now.
And that's the cool part, is when we are able to face our fears and not allow it to stop us, maybe even to have this fear drive us forward, to be able to become counterphobic, to see something that used to stop us and be able to move past it. That's that growth that's so exciting. It's why I love doing therapy, because that's what it's about. It's about looking at the things that usually stop us and learning different tools and techniques to be able to move past that. And so that's what I really love about this scene between Richter and Orlox. If you like this video, you can also check out my Last of Us Show Season 1 compilation, ad-free, sponsor-free on Nebula, just like all my videos on Nebula. And that's the whole purpose of Nebula. It's a place where high-quality education creators can post early, post extended versions, even post videos that would just never work on YouTube, like my cyberpunk sex addiction video. Yeah. It's on Nebula. You can see it unedited there. Creators like Legal Eagle, Nando V Movies, Alt Shift X, MedLife Crisis, and so many more. I've been posting my compilation videos like my Arcane, the Jinx Saga, Vox Machina Season 1, Wednesday Season 1 compilation early on Nebula, and I have a whole course on how to beat anxiety, also available only on Nebula classes. You can also get exclusive originals like how they adapted Lord of the Rings, The Time When, and so many more. All ad-free, sponsor-free, and if you sign up using my exclusive link below, you can get an annual plan of Nebula for 40% off, $250 a month, $30 a year. And clicking on that link really does help out this channel. That's all early access, all extended versions, and all originals from all the Nebula creators just by clicking on the link below. Thank you so much for supporting this channel, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video. Hopefully you like this video on Castlevania Nocturne. You can let me know your thoughts on Richter Belmont in the comments below.